Borderlands 4 has finally come out, and it seems like many people are buying it. However, when it comes to how many people are able to play it, that is a different story. You see, the reason why is because Borderlands 4, like many other games released this year that use Unreal Engine 5, is sort of an unoptimized disaster, and that's just scratching the surface. I'm playing it on PS5 Pro myself, and half the time the game chugs, and I'm losing frame drops aplenty without anything even happening on screen. However, when the game really gets going and there's dozens of enemies shooting at me and there's particle effects aplenty, loot shooting out of everywhere and then some, that's when the game becomes an unoptimized disaster. The fact that the game hasn't crashed on me to dashboard yet is honestly impressive. I am somewhat enjoying my time with the game despite its story not really being good at all and the characters so far being largely forgettable, but unfortunately Gearbox has a much bigger problem than its by the numbers story because Randy Pitchford has decided to open his mouth again for the millionth time. Randy, if you somehow don't know, is the CEO of Gearbox, which makes Borderlands games. He's very outspoken, wacky, and kind of a moron who doesn't seem to understand how to read the internet or understand its many nuances. We all know that if you were a real fan, you'd buy Borderlands 4 story, again, caused by Randy, because of course it was, but now Randy is out here basically. Let's get into it all. It's a mess, I know. As seen here from GameSpot, Borderlands 4 has been mired with performance issues aplenty across all platforms, but mostly those on PC. It has led to the game getting horrible reviews from paying customers on Steam, all voicing their concerns on how Borderlands 4 is yet another unfinished Unreal Engine 5 release, which is becoming far too common these days. Unreal Engine 5 has been used, by the way, in case you don't know, for all sorts of games this year besides Borderlands 4. You had Metal Gear Solid Delta, that's another unoptimized buggy release that uses the same engine that came out last month that players are still complaining about. You had Mafia: The Old Country, that's another Unreal Engine 5 game, and like those games also has had plenty of people complaining that despite being a mostly linear single-player game, it also is mired with issues mainly on PC. Or even Oblivion Remastered from Bethesda and Virtuous has also been attacked when it released earlier this year for yet again being another unoptimized Unreal Engine 5 release, despite it being an upscaled remaster of a game that is like almost 20 years old. To say that it's a reoccurring theme here that Unreal Engine 5 is routinely leading to horrible launches across the game industry, that is an understatement. And with Borderlands 4 arguably the biggest release this year that is using this engine, it's become more of a given that if a game is going to use Unreal Engine 5, the likelihood is that the game will be a mess is almost certain now. And if you enjoy the content, consider liking the video, leaving a comment, and even subscribing helps a lot, thank you. But to Randy, you're all just, poor and, well, stupid, according to him. I think this PC Gamer article puts it well, which reads, even with a 9800 X3D and a 5090, it runs like absolute butt cheeks. 2K Games posts NVIDIA's Borderlands 4 optimized settings guide, but the community is already in open revolt. So like I said, it's not going well for Randy or his reputation, but he didn't take it lying down. Instead, he decided to open fire back at his paying customers who he believes are actually in the wrong. So due to this unoptimization, Randy would respond to some users where he would say things like this: the minimum and recommended specs are published. The most common hardware is a 4-year-old cell phone. Borderlands 4 is a premium game made for premium gamers. Just as Borderlands 4 cannot run on a PS4, it cannot be expected to run on too old PC hardware. Unlike on PlayStation and Xbox, we cannot prevent a PC player with suboptimal hardware for the game try to play it, so some try and get mad. But as you can see in this same post near the end there, Randy says if Borderlands 4 is not good enough for you, please use the refund feature on Steam rather than having a subpar experience. He's actually openly telling people to even refund his game on Steam if they can't make it run on their PCs. So Randy's comments there is that the game is a premium experience is kind of a lie, because so far nothing really feels premium about Borderlands 4. So far it just feels like a worse version to play due to performance issues than previous games games in the series, and graphically, I mean, sure, it may have better resolution or whatever else, but frankly, for a game that looks like this, it should not need to demand so much power for what's on display here. It would be one thing if Borderlands 4 had insanely good realistic graphics, but it really doesn't. It looks like a cartoon. Yet it still routinely falls below 60 FPS on PS5 and PC for many people, and the reality is that Borderlands 4 was very, very clearly not ready for release. Yet despite this, Randy and his investors, they wanted their pay bonuses and to release their game before the winter season, to cash those checks. But because of this, they're ruining the goodwill and name of Gearbox. But like I said, this seems to be a running thing with game releases this year alone. Way too many games have come out this year that frankly just don't run well at all on PC. It's a big reason why I avoid playing PC myself. Not because PC gaming is bad, it isn't. In fact, it's great. But the reason being is that it has become increasingly obvious that with the last decade and then some of game releases, most notably those of AAA Western studios, that nothing is really being made to run well at release on PC specifically, and it sucks. I think the only Unreal Engine 5 game that I can think of recently that maybe ran well on release for PC maybe was Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Besides that, it's been kind of a nightmare to put any faith in Unreal Engine at this point. Maybe it's not even the engine but the developers and the studios instead. It's pretty obvious that the companies have long established the mantra of ship it now and fix it later as a creed that they all live by, which benefits them because they make their money, but then ruins the experience and the trust of the players who support these games because these games just keep getting released broken all the time. Like I said, Randy had plenty more to say too. At one point, Randy went on a tirade going through all the specs of Borderlands 4, telling players to tinker with all the settings in game to make it run better for them. Eventually, one user would reply to Randy, telling him that maybe Gearbox shouldn't have relied on AI upscaling so much, and how did Randy respond? Well, here's what he said. "Code your own engine and show us how it's done, please. We will be your customer when you pull it off. The people doing it now are clearly dumb and don't know what they're doing, and all the support and recommendations and code and architecture from the world's greatest hardware companies and tech companies working with the world's greatest real-time graphics engine coders don't know what you seem to know," and then he puts a /sarcasm at the end right there. Okay, well then why is it that despite you having access apparently to all of the latest and greatest tech that you can seem to get your game to run well on any platform that it's available on? If at some point you need to come to the conclusion that just maybe you're at fault here, we can then improve this whole situation for everybody. Like, you may be having a good time, but Randy's a millionaire tech CEO, man. The guy has the money to have the best PC imaginable to play his games on. For the average consumer, they don't have that, and frankly, I think making your game for apparently the premium gamer, as Randy puts it, that's not really working in their favor, because it's obvious that the game is not very premium if next to nobody can run the damn thing at all, and it's likely not exactly even premium then, but just very poorly optimized if it's running like molasses for everyone. But I figured, since Randy wants to get on his high horse and say he only has the best people working on the game and that we're all wrong instead, that I would find someone who would be of equal standing or maybe beyond Randy that could weigh in on this process. And would you have it that Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games, which owns Unreal Engine, spoke recently on this very subject, as PC Gamer reports here. The primary reason Unreal Engine 5 based games don't run smoothly on certain PCs or GPUs is the development process, as Tim Sweeney says. Well, that goes against Randy's argument, doesn't it? The guy who owns Unreal Engine saying that it's a developer's fault and not the players? How could he? Tim Sweeney was in South Korea during a tech event where he said all of this, but here's more of what he said as it reads here. More specifically, he suggested that one particular problem is the choice of PC platform used in the formative stages of a game's creation. Many developers begin by developing games for high-end hardware, then optimize and test on lower-spec devices in the final stages, and Epic CEO had more to say as it reads here. In addition to providing training on the overall testing and optimization process, it's crucial to raise awareness that optimization should occur early. If necessary, our engineers can directly intervene to raise awareness of optimization techniques and provide technical assistance. So, case in point, Randy claiming that it's the player's faults that the game is not running well goes completely against what Tim Sweeney, the guy who literally owns the engine that Borderlands 4 is running on, is saying instead. The problem here is that Randy and his team are not developing games for the common gamer, but instead want to make games for the premium gamer, as he puts it, which really doesn't work. Because I don't know if you haven't noticed, but not everyone is a millionaire tech CEO who can afford things like that, and it's even more nebulous and stupid Considering someone like me on the PS5 Pro, where the specs are concrete no matter which PS5 or Pro you play on, they're all the same. And even then, the game refuses to run perfectly sound regardless, making this very obvious that if this was made for premium gamers, then if your game doesn't even run on the latest PS5 hardware version, like the Pro, you know, the leading console this generation, then I guess being a PS5 Pro owner myself makes me also not a premium gamer in Randy's eyes then. In my opinion, the game should have been delayed because what Tim Sweeney said is right. There seems to be one reoccurring element in most, if not all, Unreal Engine-led games this generation, which is that they all do not work as intended at release. So the fact that the same exact scenario is being replicated across multiple games despite graphical quality, genre, or scope, that tells us there's a fundamental issue that is plaguing these studios and this engine, and it's not the players. Because Unreal Engine 5 clearly has issues, and it's no wonder that games that ran better this year alone were not made on Unreal at all, and it shows. Silksong, sure, it's an indie game, some will say, but it's made on Unity, and you can tell because it's not a stuttering mess that implodes whenever you try to play it. But you can't compare Silksong to Borderlands 4, I can hear them say. You're right, you can't, because Silksong actually works as intended at release, unlike Borderlands 4 does. I do think another big issue that is clearly showing up is that the industry has unanimously, it seems anyways, to be using Unreal Engine 5, not all mind you, but some games are using other engines. For example, the Resident Evil games are using the RE engine at Capcom, or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is on CryEngine, for example. But a large majority of games either out or coming out are all on Unreal Engine 5, and why is that? Likely because with developers always moving in between different companies and projects, it makes it easier to get them situated if every game made uses the same engine, which will lead to less downtime or resources spent to get new developers up to speed since they know the tools already. But the other reason, and I think this is big, is of course outsourcing development to other countries. For example, let's look back at Bethesda's Starfield. Remember that game? A game that was panned, and that's putting it lightly, by players for also being an unoptimized mess at release. When people beat that game though, they noticed that the credits were ludicrously long, and people started noticing and counting just how much of Starfield was outsourced from Bethesda Studios. As this Reddit post from 2 years ago shows, it was confirmed that Starfield was made by 27 different game studios, with over 500 game developers that worked on that one game alone. You went from one studio making games back in the day to now needing 27 making one game that somehow runs worse and looks bad compared to other games around it or even made before it. So how does that happen? Because these companies are outsourcing the development process to people outside of their core studios that are not equipped to make the games that they're making, which then leads to what can only be described as unoptimized, unfinished messes that run terrible and look even worse. Borderlands 4, by the way, that had 4 studios working on that title. You had Gearbox, that's the main developer, and then you had Gearbox Quebec and Montreal, and finally Lost Boys Interactive, which is also owned by Gearbox. The game was largely developed by these 4 studios, yet even then the game does not run well. So what gives? Why would that happen? I think it's that companies are trying to cut corners, trying to get the best bang for their buck, and then sell the mess at premium prices to make their money back, and then fix it as it's on fire at release in order to save some money. Randy Pitchford, of course, doesn't believe that he's the problem, nor his studio, since he said this on Twitter, which got community noted, which reads, "Every PC gamer must accept the reality of the relationship between their hardware and what the software they are running is doing." And as the community note reads, "The publisher of a game is responsible of providing accurate recommended and minimal specs, since the consumers have absolutely no way to check how the game is going to run in the hardware before release." And yeah, they're right. So you see, what we're witnessing is a millionaire that is trying to tell people poorer than he is that they're actually the problem. And the best thing that Randy could do, which is what I've been saying in my other Borderlands 4 videos from months ago, still rings true, which is simply that Randy Pitchford, he needs to shut up and stop speaking publicly on social media ever, probably for the rest of time. Because every single issue from a PR perspective seems to stem from Randy as a CEO and really no one else at Gearbox. I don't hate Gearbox. I don't think they're idiots. I don't even hate Randy. I frankly more so just feel tired of the guy voicing his opinions because he's doing nothing but ruining the reputation of the hundreds of devs who worked on Borderlands 4 with his words alone. Even Paul Tassi of Forbes, a guy who hates me because he tried to come after me a few times and failed miserably, has publicly stated as seen here that Randy Pitchford just needs needs to stop talking. You even have people like Paris, as shown here, who has been documented to not know the games of developers that he interviews, and he shills all the time for Xbox and then some, even admitting as seen here that Randy Pitchford also needs to stop talking. So you know it's bad when the paid shills of the industry who eat any slop that you give them are out here publicly going, even this is too much. Like, Randy's cooked here, fellas. And let's be real, if what Randy said was instead said by any Gearbox developer, Randy would fire that developer for speaking out against the fans like this, and we all know that. Yet because Randy is CEO, he is just allowed to be a moron for free, I guess, on Twitter, and nobody can reasonably rein in this guy and get him to stop being a moron himself. They need to tie Randy to a hospital bed and put the Hannibal mask over his mouth until at least a year after Borderlands 4's release, and then some. And then only then should Randy be allowed to voice his opinions, until the inevitable Borderlands 5 comes out. And then they probably can just like sedate Randy, put him in a shipping container with an IV drip, and place him in a medically induced coma until maybe at least 6 months after Borderlands 5 releases, because the dude is clearly passionate about his games. I get that, that's great. But Randy has got to stop attacking the fans, man. This is how boycotts happen, and it's already bad enough that you had that moronic real fan story earlier this year too. But Randy wasn't done, however, since as seen here, he also posted a lengthy reading about how much of the tickets being sent in from customer service on Borderlands 4 shows that the game is actually running well for most people, but this is yet again just damage control by Randy. Personally, the game doesn't run well for me maybe 70% of the time when I'm playing it. And actually, the longer that I play it, the worse the game is running. I have to usually exit the game completely and then come back in to refresh my performance every little bit, just due to how chuggy and weird the game seems to get, which is not really fun to do since I shouldn't have to ever do that when I'm playing a game. But if the so-called low amount of customer tickets were true, then Borderlands 4 wouldn't have an overwhelmingly negative reception on Steam right now. It just sounds like damage control to me, and again, Randy did this also where he showed YouTuber Moxie displaying his settings to getting Borderlands 4 to run well himself, and as seen here, Randy shows how Moxie optimizes his gameplay on PC, and the players responded below in a less than positive manner. As you can see, from users saying Randy is disconnected, others saying the game is a mess optimization-wise, and now Randy's comments are alienating fans who can't afford the best-in-line PC gaming rigs to play his game, and like I said, Randy is completely out of touch. And Unreal Engine 5 is to blame as well. The gamer even condemned it as seen here in this article, where they highlight games like Metal Gear Solid Delta, Oblivion Remaster, and even Mind's Eye, all being games that run like complete dog water on Unreal Engine 5. What's also weird is that previous Unreal Engines seemed fine. After all, Borderlands 3 ran on Unreal Engine as well. Yet it's just the 5th iteration of Unreal that is causing far more problems than before. And then again, the other difference between games made back then versus now is also that there wasn't a, massive hiring spree of activists working at these companies. Maybe that's to blame for it too. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the caliber of developer per head is worse now since the mass hiring sprees of 2020 onward. But at least Borderlands 4 gets diversity right. Apparently, also from the gamer as seen here, some players are praising Borderlands 4 for how it handles LGBTQ+ characters. So far, I would say the new characters are mostly forgettable. They detail Rush, for example, who is that big black guy you saw in the gamer article there, who is a more so, he's kind of just like a big cuddly teddy bear kind of a guy. I don't have any problem with him. I think he's a fine addition for the most part to the game. He's neither remarkable or really interesting. He kind of just fills the need that we for like a nice leader archetype guy, I guess. But then you also have a second in command who's named Conway, I think her name is, who's apparently non-binary. To be real with you, I couldn't even notice or tell because Conway is so forgettable. I actually forgot she even existed despite me playing this game until I read this article for this video. Beyond this, there's other characters like Zedra, who's just more interesting due to her connection to the main villain, I guess. But frankly, from what I've seen so far, the villains and the new heroes of Borderlands 4 are mostly just forgettable to me. I am playing the game as Amon, the Forge Knight. He's like the big dude with the robot arms and he can summon axes and such. I think he's pretty cool to play as. Sure, he's kind of weak in the beginning, but he does get better, although apparently at release anyway, Amon is technically the weakest Vault Hunter to use right now. But I still like him anyways. But to be honest, although more legacy characters do show up later on in the campaign, when it comes to this new tone for Borderlands, it kind of just feels more like an overcorrection if you ask me. The humor is mostly gone. I haven't laughed once the entire time that I've played the game. There's still annoying voice actors screaming into microphones, although it is less at least, which which is good. And the villains so far just feel like bog standard paper thin bad guys, I guess. Maybe I'll be proven wrong once I beat the campaign. I have no idea. I'm not done yet. But the open world design as well just sort of bloats Borderlands more than anything too. I actually prefer the design of Borderlands 3 more, which had open zones that were smaller that eventually just funneled you into the next story area. I thought that actually worked better because it kept the pacing more consistent. Here I'm just kind of free to go wherever I want, but the openness of Borderlands 4 is mostly wasted like many AAA open world games before it. The openness is just there to drive in through to the next destination, I guess, besides maybe a boss spawning somewhere nearby to fight. Mostly speaking anyway, the open world aspect of this game is just there so that they can put it on the box when they sell the game as a selling point, I guess. And Borderlands 4 so far, in my opinion, has some really cool new ideas for weapons, but I'm already finding myself avoiding certain weapon manufacturers already. The Order line of weapons are these like single fire weapons that you can hold the trigger down to little multiple shots and then let go to shoot. Frankly, I hate this weapon archetype and I just avoid it whenever I get one. Although some weapons now have alt fires that allow for flamethrowers or laser beams, which I do like. Maybe those were in previous games, I don't remember, whatever, who cares. But I am enjoying how Amon's skill tree at least allows me to make him feel pretty unique to play from other Vault Hunters in the series. Basically, in case you haven't noticed, Borderlands 4 is a mixed bag for me. Whenever it shines, it tends to muck something else up for me instead. I don't really see myself ever reasonably replaying this game in full ever again once I beat it this time, mostly because it's just frankly too big of an open world game for me like many other games before it. I guess I'm just tired of open world games, it seems. I prefer tighter level design and more quality over quantity, but who knows, maybe the later parts of the game are better. I don't know, I'm not there yet. I'm level 21 as of the making of this video myself, but I think Borderlands 4 is definitely an overcorrection in the story department. The game seems afraid to make jokes more often than not, and there's some quests like where you can help a crazed scientist lady or this other guy in like a meat packing plant that are absolute chores to complete due to how much dialogue there is and how much little shooting you do. But there have also been some good quests too, like one where you help an AI robot in a decommissioned missile find the meaning of life. I thought that was an actually good side quest mission in this game. Or another where you help a guy named Daryl escape a crashed ship so he can find his face cream that keeps him 10 years younger. Another solid side mission. So like I said, there's nuggets of gold here. I'm not going to say Borderlands 4 is terrible because it isn't, but when you combine the sometimes overbloatedness of its gameplay design with the fact that Randy Pitchford and his opinions plaguing this game with more moronic problems that should just not be there, I wouldn't be surprised if people walk away from Borderlands because of him alone. Borderlands' biggest issue is its CEO, because he routinely self-sabotages his studio's reputation whenever he opens his mouth. And honestly, Randy needs to just rein it in. And again, I don't hate Gearbox or Randy. I don't wish for this game to fail or anything like that. I just think it's high time that we agree that games need to stop releasing unfinished and have to be fixed before launch, because this ship now finish later mantra is seriously destroying the reputation, hype, and fun of video games. And it's objectively in every player's best interest to just not buy any game pretty much at release from Western studios until at least 6 months to a year later at this point, due to how poorly optimized these games just seem to be every single time. And I wish it wasn't that way, but I guess that's what happens when you got studios out here outsourcing their games to 20 plus studios and developing their entire games around the 1% of players with the best gaming rigs. But what do you think about Borderlands 4? Are these sins too much to support? Is Randy right or wrong? Will you buy the game, or do you believe games releasing broken like this needs to end? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves and see you next time.